What's up, Photoshop fam? Today I'm going to show you 3 ways to remove almost anything from your images in Photoshop. Stay tuned. What's up, Photoshop fam? I'm Rick Navarro, and this is the Pixel Laundry Photoshop Academy. One of the most basic things that you're going to need in almost any image you do in Photoshop is to be able to remove stuff from the image. And that doesn't matter whether it's large stuff or small stuff. Sometimes there are situations where you can't really help what's going to be in the frame. You could be on location and there's a trash can in the background, or there's trash on the floor. Maybe you catch a candid shot and you're out with your family or you're out with your friends, and maybe there's just something really distracting in the background and you want to get rid of it, otherwise the picture would be amazing. So I'm going to show you 3 different tools and maybe a bonus tool, maybe one more bonus tool to show you how to get rid of stuff in Photoshop. So I pulled up a couple of these images right here, and this is from a fashion shoot I did some time ago. I'm going to show you the first and probably my favorite and quickest way, I think, to get rid of things that you don't want in your image. Okay, so this is a model in a pool, obviously, and we've got a few little things like spots in the pool, some creases in the concrete, and some just random kind of paraphernalia in the back that we're going to get rid of very easily. So first thing you're going to do is you're going to duplicate the layer, and what we're going to do is grab the patch tool. Okay, now patch tool doesn't usually come up by default. It's usually under the healing brush tool, which is also helpful, but we'll get back to that later. My personal favorite is the patch tool, and the way it works is you're just going to make a selection like you normally would with anything else, and if you hover over your selection, you'll see this little arrow pop up. And it basically is telling you to drag over to an area that is easily sampleable. So I'm going to go this way, even though it's saying go to the right, just means drag over. And as you can see, just like that, it got rid of that crease. Now, one thing you'll want to watch out for is stuff like this. This is what we call like a blowout. If I back it up a little bit, if I grab in my selection, if I grab just a little bit of that edge and I grab some of those black pixels and do the same thing, I'm going to get this kind of fading effect. And what it's doing is it's basically grabbing some of those pixels because it's assuming that's what you want, and it's averaging them out with the rest of the environment. The way that tool works is basically it's going to grab the average of the pixels around it and give you like an approximation in the middle. So that works really great on textures that maybe aren't as repetitive. Like this one is a really great example of that. Camouflagey type texture. So lace would be a good example of that. Something where the print isn't so definite. Sand, grass, tree bark. It's certain types of clothing patterns, even hair. Skin is a really good one where this works really, really well. And I'm actually going to show you another sample here in a second of that working actually on skin. But that's basically how this is going to work. And as you can see, it pulled it very nicely, and I can move relatively quickly in here. Now, to fix this, what you want to do is, first off, you probably don't want to grab it in the first place. But that kind of moves us right on into our second tool. Your clone stamp tool is the next tool I'm going to show you. Clone stamping is probably the most famous technique in Photoshop to remove anything. You can use that in conjunction with these techniques. Actually, all of these techniques work really well together. It really just depends on the scenario. It depends on the environment, what's going on, and what is going to be the best tool for the job. So you can use this in conjunction with the patch tool to get you a good result. So let's just go ahead and show you that now. So if you hit S on your keyboard, your shortcut for your stamp tool is S. It's also right here. You're going to sample an area that's close by holding down the Alt or Control if you're on a PC. Hold the Alt, sample out an area that's nearby. What you're really looking for is similar light. So you can sample anything on this area, in this area. Let's say I'm out here, I want to sample from over here. The difference is that the concrete over here is much lighter than the concrete right here. So you want to be really careful about where you're sampling and go ahead and sample somewhere close by where the light is very similar. Now I've got a soft brush here. I don't want a super hard edge, because if I do that, that's going to give me more problems. You can see now I got to fix this. So instead of doing that, I'm going to soften down this brush just a pinch. I'm going to sample out somewhere close by, and I'm going to lightly ease in this area that I just messed up by using it improperly. There we go. Okay. So again, let's do it again over here. I'm going to use my patch tool, drag it off. Same thing over here. I'm going to be careful of that black edge, pull it off, and then as I need to fix it, I'm going to sample close by where the area is light, and paint my texture back on. Okay. Now, one thing I just noticed I want to show you guys is if you have a soft brush and you come to something like this where there's a hard edge, and you go in here and you get real tight to it and you paint that off, now you have this ghosting sort of effect, this hazy effect. In some cases that works really good because it could be like what we call a kicker light or an edge light that may be coming in that's hazy from the background. But if that's not the case, it just looks like poor Photoshop work. So you want to be mindful of that. So if you're getting super tight in here on something like this and you need that edge to be tight, tighten up your brush. And by tightening it up, I mean a harder edge brush. Now, on the other side, I just said that could create problems. So why is it different here? Well, the difference is because one of those edges needs to be a little bit firmer than the other. And it's okay if I clip off just a pinch of that edge right there to get it tight. Now over here, you can't even see it. But if I could see it, if for some reason I could see it, in fact, let's just go ahead and go down and I'll show you what to do if you run into that situation down here. I've got a hard brush and I want to fix an edge like this. See, now I've created a good edge on the inside, but now I've created a bad edge on the outside. And if I had to fix it, it's an easy fix. Go back to your patch tool, grab that outside edge, and basically do the same thing that got you in the mess in the first place. And you're going to clear it up nice and quickly. Okay? Now, on this last one, this is probably, I know I said the patch tool is my favorite, but this is probably my go-to 99% of the time. And that's content-aware fill. Okay? And content-aware fill is basically doing the exact same thing, but it's doing it in less keystrokes. So instead of sampling, painting, sampling, painting, sampling, painting, I'm going to basically do it like I would a fill layer. Okay? And the way I do this is I hit Shift and hold Delete, and this fill box comes up, and in here sometimes it's foreground background color. That's usually the default that it sets to. What I go is content aware, and content aware fill will basically do the same thing that the patch tool is doing. It's going to average the amount of pixels directly around that selection, and it's going to fill it with what Photoshop thinks is the result that you're trying to get. Okay, so if I just go okay, there it is. And you can see you can move really quickly through this to eliminate things in the background. Another use of this is in camera lens dust. I see this all the time. It's actually not coming from your photo, it's actually in your camera. So you'll need to carefully remove your lens if you're using a DSLR, that I should say. And there's tons of videos out there for that, and I recommend that you watch them and you proceed really carefully, because you can mess up your camera if you're not careful while you're cleaning that. And you can't just clean it with anything. Don't get in there with Windex and spraying your CMOS sensor. But there are really great ways and great videos out there showing you how to clean your sensor or sensor dust off of your camera. But if for some reason you don't feel confident enough to do that, or you don't want to risk messing up your camera, totally understandable. An easy way to fix that is use content aware fill. Content aware fill is also great for stuff like this, right? Like there isn't necessarily anything close by, but Photoshop has done an incredible job with this particular tool in getting it to do stuff like that. That was you know, amazing. Super, super easy to fix. Okay. Up here, this is an interesting one that I'd probably come in here with a stamp tool. And anytime I'm gonna use a stamp tool, like, let me show you why I wouldn't use content aware fill here, although it might actually work. Let's just see. Okay, that's not too bad. You see these repeating patterns that are starting to happen here? That may be a reason. Let's see if content aware fill works down here. I'm right up against the edge of this chair, so it may not. And that's the thing, it's kind of a guess. In some perfect example, in some circumstances, it's not really the best tool for the job, and this is why I'm showing you at least 3. Okay. Now this is giving me a good start. From here, I can come in here with my stamp tool and again, stamp out. Again, I've got that hard edge, so I'm gonna get rid of that. Soften this up a little bit. And then I'm gonna just maybe slowly build up and get rid of all of this nonsense over here. Okay, to get a straight line, what I'll do is I'll hold shift. What I'll do is I'll sample up here first, make my first click here, and then if I hold shift and click down at the end point, it will draw a line for me so that I know that my shape is straight. Now you're seeing a little jagged here is because the area that I sampled hit the edge of this. So instead of doing that, let's just sample a little further back, right about there. Same thing, click first, hold shift, click all the way down, and I make sure my line is straight. I've created an edge for myself. I've got a lot of repeating in there. This is like signature clone stamp con, you know, pros and cons. This would be a con to the clone stamp. There's a very signature look that clone stamping, when done improperly, will give, and it'll give your photo away and make it look like you don't know what you're doing. So let's not do that. There's enough bad Photoshop out there in the world. Let's make sure you're a pro. All right, so now I'm basically just using a combination of those 3 techniques just to clean this up. All right, and just like that, some of these problem areas are already taken care of. Now, let's go to a different sample I've got here for you. So this is another one. You know, sometimes you run into a situation where you've got all these signs in the background. And again, I'm going to go content aware fill. Well, let's make sure I'm on the right layer. I am not. Pro tip, always work non-destructively. All that basically means is always keep a copy of your original inside your document. Some people argue that it occupies more space and makes the file heavier, but in my experience, it's always better to have that than to not. If you have worked directly on that layer and you destroy that layer for some reason, or it gets corrupt, or you've gone too far and you don't have enough history states to go back and source on the layer that you've been working on, you're gonna be stuck. So always copy that original layer, turn it off, put it in a folder somewhere where it's not gonna get messed up. And if you need it later in your workflow, it's there for you. Okay, so that's basically what working non-destructively means. It means to work non-destructively on your original layer. So I'm going to turn that off, go to this layer here, and then start my edits here. Content aware fill. And that this background is kind of nondescript enough and blurred out because of the depth of field that I don't have to worry about so much of these details. Content aware fill. Very good. Maybe right here, I'm gonna clone stamp some of this building down just a pinch. Let's soften up that edge a little bit more. And kind of follow the line of these other buildings in the background before it fades off. Content aware fill. There it goes. Now I've got a little bit of ghosting action, so I'm going to blend that. Another cool technique I like to do with the stamp brush is drop the opacity super low, like 20 or 30% on the stamp brush. There we go, right there. And you can build up the layer. Like if you don't want to go 100% right out the gate, like now I'm gonna, in strokes, in brush strokes, I'm gonna build this up so that I get the effect that I want. And that's a nice way to kind of ease into the effect that you're trying to achieve. Couple people in the background here. If you want to make it look like your set is completely void of other human beings, you've got this exclusive access. Maybe you're on a beach and there's way too many people in the background and you just want to make it look like there is just you and the person. This is how you do it. Okay, now I just want to keep an eye out for like smudgy repeating patterns because all of these are kind of susceptible to that. Let's bring the opacity back up. There you go. Here's another, look at this. It looks like there's trash or something on the floor. Very quickly, make light work of that. Gone. Maybe there's just, you know, one too many of these things. Let's get rid of this one right here. Now, what do? It kind of blew out the backside. Now, this one actually kind of works because it's pulling in the green from over here from the top of this planter. But if it didn't, right? If it didn't, again, you're going to use a combination of your tools, use your stamp brush, and I'm going to sample from up here and just a very little bit at a time build in that background. Now, it helps that it's blurred out and that it's very nondescript and that you can't really tell. So visually, it's going to work really great, but you'll just want to be careful so that there aren't any crazy repeating patterns that make it obvious. Anything that's too unnatural is going to draw attention, is going to draw visual attention, or naturally kind of just draw the eye towards that side of the image. So again, think like a camera, or think like how a camera operates, I should say. And slowly figure out, is this in focus? My view angle, is it in my depth of field? Like, you know, where is this shot at in terms of aperture? And that's going to determine what's in focus and what's in not. How much can I fudge it and get away with it? This is looking pretty decent right about now. So now I'm going to grab this and use a combination of my tools earlier, like I said, by making a selection, being careful what pixels I'm pulling in, and I'm just pulling in from other textures right around the area. And now I've got it right where I want it. And I've got all these little pink spots and stuff like that on the ground, and I'm getting a little bit of repeating. So I'm going to kind of come in here, content aware fill. Again, be sure to pull out when you're looking at these images so that you can get an idea of what's happening from a tonal value kind of place. When you're super tight, you can get caught up on the real tight details, and you don't realize that there's tonal values that are changing as you're making these manipulations. So you want to pull out so that you can look at the picture in its entirety and get a feel for whether me manipulating that corner is causing more problems. All right, one more. This is from a photo shoot I did some time ago where I was actually in the room with the model. There's my head. And I've got this flash on the floor. I've got reflections of my team in the background, you know, light reflections. We had these things we wanted to take out. And in the same way, basically, when I edited this photo, I'm just using the exact same techniques that I'm showing you. Okay, so I'm going to move real quick so you can see how quickly this can work for you once you get a feel for it. If this creates new problems like that, just come over and sample areas. where you're cleaning that up. Again, I'm using a combination of all three of those techniques that I just showed you. In fact, on this door, what we're going to do is make super light work of this. With the pen tool, I'm going to go ahead and make a selection because I already know that that entire section there is going to be painted out, including the door hinges, me, everything. All those little paint flecks and dust on the glass, it's reflecting back into the shot. Make sure my selection is super tight. And instead of painting with black, which I could, there's actually color variations in here that I want to keep. So I'm going to sample from the shadows. The default like 255 black can sometimes be super rich. This is actually probably not even that. And even though it looks that dark, you want to be careful when you're using that. Okay, I got a few little edges right there. I'm not going to mess with that too much just for the sake of time, but you get the idea. Now this molding, I'm going to line up those 3 lines and I'm going to paint down. Oh, you know what? Before we do that, let's create a new selection. Same thing, pen tool, P for pen tool, grab it right here, come right down to that edge, I'm going to go right to the edge of this molding where the tile kind of meets that trim piece, because I'm also going to get rid of these guys up here too. So again, I'm going to sample from right here with my stamp tool, line that up, and paint down. Now one thing I just noticed is that what I was telling you earlier, the light is it already changes from here to here. So I'm going to get a little bit closer. Maybe bring my brush size down and harden it up just a pinch. So I want to be close. Close. By close, I mean close in the approximation, like the distance between where I am sourcing from and where I am going to paint. I'm using a Wacom Cintiq tablet to do this. I bought this a few years ago and it speed up my workflow like crazy. Totally recommend it. It is a bit of like a luxury purchase, but I was doing so much work that I could justify it. It kind of paid for itself. But if you can, if you got it like that and you're looking for a piece of gear that's going to take you to the next level, especially in retouching or anything photographic or photography related, man, this thing is awesome. I'm used to working on Wacom tablets, looking at the screen and then working separately. But when you merge those two worlds, especially for me personally, when I came from like a drawing and illustrative background, this just makes it so much easier. What I'm doing is I'm painting and then picking up the mouse or the stylus, painting and picking it up. With a mouse, it would be a click, 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 click to sample. I'm not holding it down and brushing all the way through or painting and keeping it in contact with the surface the entire way through. I'm actually painting in strokes. And what that's doing is sampling the new areas that I've just painted. So instead of sampling the original area, every time I pick it up, it resamples a new area. And it basically kind of works like this, as opposed to clicking down and then scrubbing, because as I'm painting, it's sampling. So you want to paint, resample, paint, resample. So sample from here, fix that, pick it up, paint, pick it up, paint, pick it up, paint. Okay, got a little bit of painting issues. There is my patch tool fix. I'm gonna make my selection here. This is a great surface. It's kind of a marbly sort of surface. Let's see if content aware fill will fill in the blank for us. Boom. Did a pretty good job cleaning that up. Look for repeating patterns. I'm gonna be like a Photoshop ninja. No sign that I was anywhere close by. All right. And basically, you go through and do the same thing over here. You basically repeat that process over and over again until you get it to where you like it. And in this particular case, this one finished up like this. I even brought a little bit of the molding down here in the corner, got rid of the speed light, and brought in some of this edge. And now I'm not in the photo anymore. Okay, I want to show you one last thing. I promised you maybe one more. Those are three. So you've got your stamp tool, you got your clone, your clone stamp tool, you've got your content aware fill, and you've got the patch tool. Now, if you wanted to kind of combine the two, patch and a stamp tool, basically you want to use your healing brush. Again, duplicate your base layer. This is an object, so I'm going to rasterize that. And if you get your healing brush, again, it's really about the tool for the job. But your healing brush is like a combination of your content aware fill, your clone stamp, and your patch tool. And basically, in the shape and form of a brush, you're going to be able to use those three different tools, power, if you will, to get the same effect. The spot healing brush tool. It's under here, the healing brush. It's under the healing brush palette. If you click down and hold down, you'll be able to get a drop down of additional tools. Any tool in this palette, in your tool palette, that has got a tiny little arrow here in the corner, that means that there's more tools under that particular button. So you've got more options. And in this particular case, spot healing brush tool works just like that. As you can see, I'm basically dragging. Instead of making a selection and then hitting content aware fill, I can use it as a click, or I can click and drag to paint like a brush. In this particular image, it's destroying my texture, so it wouldn't be the greatest tool for the job here, right? But if I use it as maybe just kind of like a spot, like just a click, I can move relatively quickly. Again, this was like a bonus one. I don't use this one very often because I use a combination of those other three. But earlier in my career, I used to use it a lot. And it is pretty effective, especially if you're starting out. For an image like this where there's a lot of freckles and there's a lot of texture that needs to be maintained, in this particular image, she's got a ton of different colors in her face that we'd have to even out. I recommend you check out the frequency separation video that I have that I just did recently, and it shows you how to separate the texture and the tone. That way you can address the tonal issues and then address the texture issues. And on your high pass layer, you could use this, or you could use any of those other techniques that I just showed you. All right, guys, that's all I got for you today. Hope that really helps you out. Be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so that you can get updates on our future videos. We love making these for you. If you've got any ideas for future episodes, make sure you comment in the section below and let me know if this is helping you out, okay? Thank you so much for watching, and we'll catch you next time.